Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Please keep getting your food and your drinks while I talk. But we do have a rather large home audience as well, in addition to those of you that are here in the restaurant with us. So we're going to get started for them as well. I'm Tracy Dixon-Salazar. I'm the executive director of the LGS Foundation. I've been the executive director about a year, and prior to that, I was the research director. I have a 28-year-old daughter with LGS. Her name is Savannah, and I have been living the LGS journey for many, many years, and have been an advocate for about 25 years. And I'm really excited to see you guys all here to talk about the state of research in LGS. So I'm going to talk for probably about 5 to 7 minutes, so just about what we're doing at the foundation and how we got here to this research roundtable. So you just have a little bit of background, and mostly I'm going to talk about our 3 new research programs that I hope you guys will be excited about, especially our new grants program. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Baraban, who's our moderator today, for a whole slew of excellent talks by mostly LGS grantees from past years. So I'm very, very excited about this. Thank you. I'm going to talk for like 7 minutes, so you can go sit back down a bit. Oh, okay. You could go get some food if you want. Dr. Baraban's really excited to get up here. So first of all, I want to thank our sponsors today for this research roundtable. We could not do this without them. We have our presenting sponsor, Takeda, and thank you guys for helping us to make this happen. It's so nice to be back together after 2 years of basically sitting in my pajamas in my office by myself. So thank you guys. I want to thank our gold supporters as well, Zogenix and Neurelis, who really came up and have helped us this year to move the research forward. And then also to Aquestive and Greenwich Biosciences / Jazz Pharmaceuticals, who are now working with each other and are becoming Jazz Pharmaceuticals. So thank you for supporting us at the silver level. We really couldn't have done this without you, getting all these scientists and doctors together and patient advocates to talk about my least favorite subject, LGS, but the most important subject in my life, LGS. I just want to take a moment, just a minute here, to talk about our current professional advisory board. Some of the members are here today: Anup Patel, Eric Marsh, Brenda Porter, Heather Mefford, Tim Benke, Susan Messino, Zach Grinspan, and John Paz. And some of these PAB members have been on our PAB for, like 10 years. I think we've been around for 13 years. And so they are finally getting to retire. And so if you guys are here, if any of you guys are here, can you guys just put your hand up? Because we want to give you a round of applause, everybody, and to say thank you for serving. Congratulations for finally getting off. And we're going to be rotating a new medical science advisory board in January. But we would not be where we are at today without this group of amazing, generous, educated, talented, committed people. So thank you guys so much, and thanks for being here. You're just going to the leadership circle, so we're still going to tap you guys for stuff, but congratulations on retiring finally. So I want to talk a little bit about how we think about LGS at the LGS Foundation. And many of you have seen this. So nobody's born with LGS. It's something that evolves over time. And it evolves from a number of etiologies. About 50% of them are brain injuries, and about 50% are genetic, with more than 150 genes predisposing to LGS. And it doesn't really matter where you came from. Once you have LGS, you have the same epileptic network, and we're going to hear some really great talks about that epileptic network today, this disorder of the secondary network. So you have more than one type of seizure, you have slow spike and wave on the EEG, generalized paroxysmal fast activity on the EEG, cognitive impairment in nearly all patients within 5 years of seizure onset, and this is all happening before the age of 8, and often much younger. And the prognosis once you have LGS is horrible: continued seizures, progressive intellectual disability, premature mortality, frequent crises. My daughter at her worst would go into crises 2 to 4 times a week, hospital visits, aspiration pneumonia, injuries, fractured skulls. It's not a good, there's no good disease to have, but it's just not a good picture. The families are in crisis all the time. But before there's LGS, there's what we call pre-LGS. And really what that looks like is anything that sort of is a risk factor. So before you have LGS, you have treatment-resistant epilepsy. And you might have another syndrome like West or early infantile epileptic encephalopathy or some other syndrome. You might, and then before that, you have epilepsy. And somewhere along the trajectory, you'll have your first seizure, and then that will evolve to epilepsy as you have more seizures. And then at some point, other seizure types emerge along this trajectory. That's required to have LGS. And then at some point, developmental delay will emerge. And once you have LGS, it's really hard to learn and develop, and it's very, very hard to get seizure control, as most of you know. And then, of course, before that is your etiology. So everybody who has LGS secondary to some etiology. And if you are a clinician in the room and you have patients, please tell them that they have LGS secondary to their SCN8A mutation or secondary to their hypoxic ischemia or whatever. Give them both diagnoses, because we don't have much in the community of LGS. We don't have cures. We don't have transformative treatments for many, many patients. But we have an amazing community of support. We have a patient assistance program, and we have families that will teach you the life hacks for living with this horrible disease. So please tell them that, and it opens you up to a lot of services. But this is how we think about LGS, and we want to fund research that targets LGS and the secondary network, because epileptic networks are made up of brain regions, and those brain regions have cells in them, and those cells have channels on them, and proteins, and signaling pathways, and they're connected to each other. And so we want to start to look for the anatomical substrates of slow spike and wave and GPFA. But in addition to that, we also want to study and understand pre-LGS, right? Can we prevent LGS? Can we reverse it? And there is anecdotal evidence that out there that this is truly a possibility. So we want to fund in those areas, and that's how we really think about it. And this is what really emerged recently from our meeting of the minds we just had in September. Many of you guys were there. It is online. You can go watch it, where we talked about this evolution. We also talked about what I had mentioned earlier, this crisis and this hierarchy of needs. You guys might remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs from psych class. There's a LGS hierarchy of needs. And down at the bottom of that, sadly, is death. We lose way too many children and adults every year in our community, and all of us are living in fear that our children are going to die, and many of them do. Above that is crisis, constant crisis in LGS. Above that is, are our kids doing the things that they need to do to avoid crisis? Are they eating, sleeping, drinking, taking their medicines, going to the bathroom? Now, they're still going to go into crisis, even if they're doing all those things, but it's more likely they're going to go into crisis if they're not. And then above that is, are they doing any of those things themselves? And whatever's above that on the pyramid, we don't know, because our children and adults never live or never learn to do those things on their own if they do live. So we've begun to talk to patients and families, and this just is one example of something that we've learned with our discussions with them about what really matters. And now we're starting to bring together the scientific and research community to really nail down the LGS research landscape. Looking at basic science research, then looking, of course, at translational clinical trials, and then, of course, the evidence-based medicine pyramid about how we practice medicine. And I know there's some overlap between these figures, but we're just beginning to map this out. We've started to map out the specific work that's happening in each of these areas, right? So what do we know on the evidence-based medicine pyramid? What do we know about basic models? What do we know about trials? And we're continuing to put this together next year, and hopefully we'll be able to publish it and make it available. But what is the research landscape? And I'm happy to say that for all of the last names that you see on here that are in red on this slide, these are LGS Foundation grantees. And this is areas that we've funded, and many of these people are speaking today, so we're really excited about that. So we had this meeting of the minds. It was our first LGS research meeting of the minds. It was in September on finding disease-modifying therapies in LGS. And this is a follow-up to that. This is our second program. This is our research roundtable. But we're not going to stop there. From the meeting of the minds, we're building out this research landscape. We're continuing to talk to our families about what matters to them in research. We're trying to find the gaps in research. And we're really trying to bring together now a network of researchers and families and clinicians and industry partners and regulatory partners, et cetera, to really start to make a difference in the LGS space, because we are not ashamed to say this. We need help. We need help. And I'm just so grateful that you guys are here to help us, and we really need to do better for these LGS families. My daughter is 28, and we have been treating LGS the same way for 30 years. We try a treatment, we hope for the best, and we usually don't think it's going to work. And our families deserve better, they want better, and they want to help. And so we're looking to form this research network where we all work together. So the meeting of the minds we had in September was our first conference. We'll have another one in 2023, which will be clinically based, focusing on clinical aspects of LGS. What are the best treatments, comparative effectiveness? Are there any guidelines? How do we get there? And we're going to be having seminar series in between that time and this time. We had our first one this morning on improving LGS clinical trials. That was this morning at 7 a.m. It was recorded if you want to watch it on our website. And we had Dennis DeLugos, Kelly Nupp, Martina Bebin, and Suda Kessler, who all spoke about what we can learn from tuberous sclerosis and prevention as it relates to LGS. It was fabulous. If you have any ideas for seminars that you'd like us to host on topics, let us know. And we use these seminars to help build our funding strategy at the foundation and to bring the voices together that we need in order to understand this horrible disease. We also have this research roundtable, which is fantastic. It's a chance for us to show you the grantees that we work with, the people that have been funded, and they get a chance to show you their exciting work. And then finally, what came out of the meeting of the minds that I'm most excited about, and this is my last slide, is our new grants program. So we are launching as of today our Cure LGS 365 Research Grants program. And the way that this works is that there are no calls, there are no deadlines. You may submit an LOI at any time. There are 3 levels, $25,000, $50,000, $75,000. They can be paid over 1 to 2 years. The LOI will be rapid reviewed by our new Medical Science Advisory Board, and we will let you know if you're invited to submit a full proposal. If you are, that will be rapid reviewed, and if it's reviewed favorably, scientifically, and by our family reviewers, then you will be funded immediately. So we call it our 1 year, 365 opportunities to apply grant, and we're hoping that this will really help start moving the needle forward on LGS.